Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really profound look at, well, one of the most astonishing narratives of providence and political reversal in history, Genesis chapter 41.
Absolutely. This isn't just a story about, a prisoner getting lucky.
No, not at all. It's like this meticulously detailed blueprint for how character, wisdom, and suffering are interwoven, almost by design, to prepare one individual to save, well, the known world at the time.
Exactly. We're watching Joseph's transition, and it happens in a single day, from being this forgotten slave in a dungeon to becoming the prime minister of Egypt.
Egypt, the ancient world's reigning superpower. It's staggering.
It really is. It's the ultimate rags to riches story, isn't it? But the key is it's orchestrated by divine timing, not just random chance.
Right. So for you, the learner listening in, our mission today is to really dissect this transformation.
Right.
We want to get into not just the events, but the spiritual, the cultural, and even the psychological weight of his elevation.
We want to understand why the suffering was maybe strategically necessary, and the specific mechanics of Egyptian bureaucracy that actually made this move possible.
And his foresight. The administrative planning has such timeless relevance.
It really does.
Okay, so let's start where the chapter really begins, which is after this significant delay. We need to unpack this moment of divine delay.
Yeah, because 2 full years had passed since Joseph interpreted those dreams for the cupbearer and the baker in prison.
2 years. And the cupbearer, he gets restored to his position, just like Joseph said, but then he completely forgets. Utterly forgets the man who gave him that interpretation, the man who basically gave him hope back.
Just total silence. Abandonment in a prison Joseph didn't even deserve to be in. And this is after he'd been given what seemed like a clear sign of hope.
It's brutal.
That delay, though, it's crucial. And I think it's the point where a lot of people's faith might fracture,
I can see that.
The text doesn't gloss over it. It says the cupbearer forgot. Human failure right there. He failed his one chance to repay Joseph.
But you're saying this forgetting serves a higher purpose.
I think so. It serves a higher strategic purpose. Think about it. If Joseph had been released 2 years earlier, maybe based on the cupbearer's recommendation.
He might have gotten some court position.
Exactly. Based on favor, maybe gratitude. But not based on divine necessity. God's timing meant Joseph's release had to align with the exact moment when all of Egypt's human wisdom completely failed.
So that Pharaoh, and really all of Egypt, would have no choice but to recognize a supernatural source for the solution.
Precisely. It had to be undeniable.
Wow, okay. But I do wonder about the psychological toll of those extra 2 years. I mean, he maintained his integrity, managing Potiphar's house, then he basically ran the prison.
He did everything right.
He interpreted the dream successfully. He did everything right, like you said, only to be met with 2 more years of just obscurity, nothing.
That period, that's the forge, isn't it? It's where character is really tested and refined. We almost had to see those prison moments in our own lives.
Those seasons of waiting or maybe career setbacks, things not working out.
Yeah. We have to see them as necessary time, maybe for the final elements of character refinement to really settle in before destiny calls, because the call is coming.
And the call, when it came for Joseph, it came through a crisis only God could resolve. The stage is set with Pharaoh having this really restless night.
Detailed through these 2 complementary, vivid, and honestly deeply disturbing dreams, they left the absolute ruler of Egypt feeling psychologically troubled, as the text says.
Let's look closely at the imagery in those dreams because it's so tied to Egyptian life and, well, their whole worldview.
Definitely. The first dream involves the absolute heart of Egypt, the Nile River.
Right. Pharaoh sees 7 fat, healthy cows coming up out of the river, grazing in the reeds. Looks good so far.
Looks great. But then 7 other cows follow them out. And these are described as ugly, gaunt, ill-favored. The text even says they were unlike anything ever seen in Egypt for sheer badness.
That's intense imagery.
And here's the interpretive kicker.
Yeah.
Those skinny, ugly cows completely devour the 7 fat, healthy cows.
Okay.
But, and this is the crucial detail, the text explicitly states that after eating the fat cows, the skinny cows are still just as thin and ugly as they were before.
Whoa. So eating didn't help them at all.
Not one bit. And that detail is the key to understanding the severity of the prophecy. It signals a famine so total, so devastating, that even consuming 7 years worth of plenty won't satisfy or change the outcome.
The years of abundance will be completely consumed. And just forgotten, like they never happened.
Wiped out. The memory, the benefit, all gone.
That is stark and unforgettable. The second dream then reinforces this, right? But with agricultural symbols.
Yeah. 7 plump, full heads of grain growing on a single stalk. Again, looks great. Then immediately after, 7 thin, shriveled ears of grain, described as being blasted and scorched by the east wind.
The east wind. That's significant in that region, isn't it?
Always the destroyer. It's that hot, dry, scorching wind from the desert that carries dust and just kills crops. It symbolizes utter blight, total destruction.
So the doubling of the dreams, cows and grain, it covers everything, livestock and produce.
It means the message is certain, it's undeniable, and it signals a total economic collapse is coming. Pharaoh, even without an interpretation, knows instinctively this isn't just bad pizza. This is a prophetic warning, and it's about his nation.
So what does a powerful ruler like Pharaoh do when he gets a warning like that, something he feels is supernatural?
He does what rulers do. He turns to his established systems of knowledge. The text says he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt.
The experts, the court interpreters.
Right. And this is a critical moment. Pharaoh was, the patron of these arts. He surrounded himself with the most powerful interpreters, sorcerers, diviners in the ancient world. They had their techniques.
Astrology, omens, signs.
All that stuff. They used it to advise the king. Yet the narrative states it very plainly. There was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh.
Complete failure.
Total failure. And that failure of the Egyptian experts really highlights the massive difference between human wisdom, however sophisticated it might seem, and actual divine revelation.
So the greatest minds of the ancient Egyptian world, using their complex pagan systems, they were just baffled, stumped.
Utterly baffled. They couldn't give Pharaoh an answer that satisfied him, which only made him more distressed.
It really puts Pharaoh in an intellectual corner, doesn't it? He must have felt humbled, seeing his trusted advisors, the very foundation of his coarse wisdom, being completely useless.
Exactly. And that failure serves a purpose, too. It sets the stage to elevate Joseph later, making sure that Joseph's God, not Egyptian magic or human intellect, gets the credit for the solution.
And this is the moment only when the human system has totally failed.
That's when the cupbearer suddenly pipes up.
I
remember my faults today.
Talk about dramatic timing. It's almost comical if it weren't so serious.
Isn't it? And they bring Joseph hastily from the dungeon. You can just picture the urgency.
Yeah, whisked out of there. And the sources specifically mention he had to shave himself and change his clothes before going in to see Pharaoh.
That's right. And that wasn't just about looking presentable. It was strict Egyptian cultural protocol.
Right. Cleanliness, respect for royalty.
And more than that, a slave, especially from a prison, would be considered ritually unclean. So the shaving, the change of garments, it was a necessary symbolic purification. It was about removing his old identity as a prisoner, preparing him for contact with Pharaoh, who was seen as divine royalty.
Okay, so Joseph, cleaned up, stands before the most powerful man on earth. And he doesn't, try to grab the spotlight or anything.
Not at all. Pharaoh actually starts by kind of boosting Joseph's reputation, saying something like, I've heard about you, that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it.
And Joseph's response just sets the whole theological stage for everything that follows.
It really is the theological center of the chapter. His answer is this powerful deflection of any personal credit and an immediate affirmation of his true source. He says, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
Wow. Right off the bat, he explicitly contrasts his dependence on God with the court's reliance on human speculation or magic or whatever.
He makes it clear, I'm just the messenger. I'm a conduit, which is precisely why God allowed him, and only him, to be the one to interpret it. He knew Joseph would give the glory where it was due.
And then he immediately cuts through the confusion about the two separate dreams. Pharaoh saw two things, but Joseph says
they're fundamentally one message. A single, urgent message from God about the future of Egypt.
That unity reinforces the certainty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And Joseph lays out the interpretation straightforwardly. 7 years of unbelievable prosperity are coming, followed by 7 years of catastrophic famine.
And he emphasizes the severity again, right?
Yeah.
Warning that the famine will be so terrible.
So terrible that those 7 good years will be completely forgotten. Consumed, wiped out, both physically and even in memory, by the depth of the suffering that's coming later.
Then comes that strategic insight, explaining why the dream was doubled. What does he say about that?
He says it was doubled because the matter is established by God. It's fixed, it's certain, and because God will make it happen very soon.
So it's like God shouting, pay attention, this isn't just a possibility, it's definite, and you need to start preparing now.
Precisely. The urgency is baked into the repetition.
What's truly remarkable to me is that Joseph doesn't stop there. He doesn't wait for Pharaoh to say thank you or ask, okay, so what should we do?
No, he immediately pivots. He goes from being the dream interpreter, which was the job he was called in for, straight into being a strategic consultant.
He lays out a plan.
He does. And it shows that the divine wisdom he had wasn't just for understanding the future, it was for practical application for solving the problem.
Okay, this is where we need to maybe look back at his resume, if you will. How does a guy who just walked out of prison have this level of administrative genius? Was it purely divine insight, or did his time managing Potiphar's estate and then running the prison actually prepare him for this kind of large-scale logistics?
I think it's got to be a synthesis of both, right? The interpretation itself, understanding the dream, that seems purely divine. Nobody else could do it.
Okay.
But the administrative solution he proposes, that flows directly from his character and the skills he had already honed. Remember, Joseph had already proven his administrative gifts.
In Potiphar's house.
Managing a single wealthy household effectively. And then, in the chaos of a prison, he brought order and efficiency. He basically ran the place for the keeper.
So he understood supply chains, inventory, managing people.
Exactly. That background meant the practical plan he suggests wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was grounded in real-world management experience, scaled up massively by divine wisdom.
Let's break down that plan. It's very practical, step by step.
It is. First, he says, appoint a wise and discerning man to oversee the whole operation, essentially describing the role he himself ends up filling.
Okay, a national coordinator.
Then, appoint managers or officers throughout the entire land of Egypt. Decentralized collection, centralized oversight.
And crucially, the collection mechanism. They must collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years, 20%.
That 20% figure is really interesting from an economic perspective. In ancient Egypt, taxes varied. Sometimes they were higher than 20% on certain things.
So this wasn't necessarily seen as excessive.
Probably not. Joseph isn't proposing some crushing burden. He's suggesting a standardized national stewardship plan that was likely feasible for the farmers, but guaranteed national security by building up reserves.
It's like an optimal balance. Why not more?
Well, too much might spark rebellion, or maybe discourage people from maximizing production if they felt too much was being taken.
And why not less?
Wouldn't be enough. Less than 20% probably wouldn't build up a sufficient reserve to survive 7 full years of total famine. This plan ensures the surplus is managed centrally and stored strategically.
And he even specifies where it needs to be stored in fortified royal storehouses within the cities.
Right. That detail is key for accessibility during the famine years. People need to get to it, and also for security. Keep it close to the population centers, protect it from theft, spoilage, maybe even invaders later on.
This foresight, this combination of prophecy and practical policy, it's presented as an act of godly leadership designed to save nations.
Absolutely. It demonstrates that practical skills like stewardship, logistics, resource management, these aren't just secular abilities. They could be essential components of divine preparation and administration. God uses practical wisdom.
And the plan was so compelling, so obviously wise,
that Pharaoh and his entire court were immediately convinced. The text says the plan seemed good to Pharaoh and all his servants. No debate needed.
Now, to really appreciate the genius of this plan, and frankly the shock of Joseph's sudden promotion, we need to ground this story in the historical reality of ancient Egypt.
Yes, definitely. The dreams are centered on the Nile River for a very specific reason.
It was everything to them.
Everything. It wasn't just a river. It was their agriculture, their economy, their lifeblood. The cows coming out of the Nile directly symbolize the nation's complete dependence on that annual flood cycle.
If the flood was too low?
Drought and famine. If it was too high?
Destruction of crops and villages near the banks?
Right. So Joseph's interpretation spoke directly to this ever-present existential threat that was always lurking in the Egyptian consciousness. They knew famine was possible.
And the idea of a multi-year famine, that wasn't just a fairy tale either, was it?
Not at all. We have historical records that back this up. There's the famous famine stela, for instance. It's an inscription from a later period, the Ptolemaic era, but it recounts this severe 7-year famine that supposedly happened way back during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser, long before Joseph's time.
So whether that specific account is perfectly accurate or not, it shows the concept of a long, devastating famine was a known reality in Egyptian history and memory.
Exactly. It proves that Joseph's warning wasn't some wild mythological exaggeration. It was a recognized catastrophic possibility.
And what about the storage system he proposed? Does that align with what we know about ancient Egypt?
Perfectly. The Egyptians were masters of large-scale public works, including storage. We found archaeological evidence of incredibly sophisticated granaries.
What did they look like?
Often large, sometimes cone-shaped mud brick structures, usually built near administrative centers or temples. They were designed specifically for long-term storage and defense against pests and theft.
So Joseph's administrative strategy was essentially a masterclass in leveraging the existing, highly centralized bureaucratic system of Egypt for national defense against a natural disaster.
You got it. He wasn't inventing a system from scratch. He was providing the wisdom to use their existing capabilities for a specific, divinely revealed purpose.
Okay, now we get to the elevation protocol itself. This is one of the most culturally significant parts of the chapter. Pharaoh sees Joseph's unique value. He even says,
"Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is?"
think about that. That's a pagan ruler explicitly acknowledging the superior wisdom originating from Joseph's God, the God of Israel.
It's a stunning admission. And Pharaoh's authority is absolute, which is what allows for this immediate, massive reversal of Joseph's status. He just decides.
He bypasses all tradition, all the usual court hierarchy.
And appoints Joseph as the chief administrator, the vizier, the second highest office in the entire kingdom. His official pronouncement is just stark. "Only in the throne will I be greater than you are."
Wow. And this transfer of power isn't just verbal. It's codified through these really potent physical symbols. Pharaoh performs 3 key ceremonial acts.
Right. These acts effectively transfer royal identity and authority to Joseph. First, there's the signet ring.
Pharaoh takes his own personal ring off his hand and puts it on Joseph's hand.
This is huge. The signet ring was the ultimate symbol of legal authority. It meant Joseph could now seal official documents, issue decrees, administer justice in Pharaoh's name. His word now carried the weight of the monarch.
It's an immense, almost irreversible transfer of executive power.
Completely. Second, the garments and jewelry.
Joseph gets dressed in fine linen, not just any linen, but the royal Egyptian linen.
Which symbolized purity, high status, and crucially, his new, clean identity. It visually erases the prison rags and the stigma associated with them.
And he's also given a gold chain around his neck.
Another symbol of high office, honor, transformation. Think about the contrast. From the coat of many colors that got him into trouble, to prison rags, now to royal linen and gold. It's a complete visual and status transformation cemented for the whole court to see.
Okay, ring, clothes. What's the third thing?
His transport and public recognition. He's given the second chariot.
Meaning he rides in the chariot immediately behind Pharaoh's own.
Exactly. Signifying his rank as second in command. And wherever he went in this chariot, heralds would run ahead shouting, "Abrek."
Abrek, what does that mean?
Well, the exact meaning is debated by scholars, but the common interpretations are something like bow the knee, or perhaps pay attention, or even bravo.
Whatever the precise meaning, the point was clear. Immediate public acknowledgement of his unprecedented authority. Everyone had to recognize Joseph's new position.
No question about it. And then to fully integrate him into the Egyptian power structure, socially and administratively.
He gets a new name and a new family.
Right, his new Egyptian name, Zaphaneth-Paneah.
Which means?
Again, there's some linguistic debate, but common interpretations lean towards meanings like God speaks and he lives, or maybe revealer of secrets or sustainer of life.
Whatever the exact translation, the key point is it replaces his Hebrew identity with an Egyptian administrative title. It cements his role within the Egyptian court.
And then the marriage. He's married to Asenath.
Who is she?
She's the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On.
On? That sounds familiar.
On is the city, also known as Heliopolis. And it wasn't just any city. It was one of the most ancient and important religious and intellectual centers in all of Egypt. It was the primary center for the worship of the sun god, Ra.
So marrying the daughter of the high priest of On, that's a major strategic alliance.
Absolutely. It wasn't a random match. It instantly solidified Joseph's position within the highest echelons of the religious and political elite. It gave him connections, influence, access to the deepest levels of Egyptian administration.
And it ensured his children would be fully integrated into Egyptian high society. It's a complete assimilation, at least outwardly.
It is. He's now fully equipped politically, culturally, and symbolically for the massive task ahead.
Okay, let's pivot a bit now. Joseph's incredible rise from the absolute bottom, the dungeon, to the absolute peak, the palace, it's more than just history, isn't it? It feels deeply metaphorical.
Oh, absolutely. It's a profound metaphor, and it's also one of the richest examples of typology we find in the Old Testament. It's like the ultimate allegory of desolation turning into destiny.
How does that metaphorical move, prison to palace, speak to us, to the listener today?
Well, I think it speaks directly to our own lives. We all face our own kinds of prisons, don't we? Maybe it's debt or illness or feeling stuck in career obscurity or dealing with systemic injustice.
Things that feel like confinement, like being forgotten.
Exactly. Joseph's story powerfully suggests that these seasons of confinement, these times of waiting and suffering, they aren't necessarily wasted. They could be preparation chambers.
So the pain of the past can actually become the foundation for future influence.
That seems to be the model here. The very place of suffering becomes the launching pad. But it requires immense psychological resilience, doesn't it?
You mean Joseph's ability to come out of that 13 years of injustice?
Not just come out, but emerge without bitterness. Ready to serve the very system, the very royal house, perhaps, that held him captive unjustly. That capacity to turn personal injustice into impartial, effective service is what truly demonstrates his readiness for leadership on that scale.
That lack of bitterness is key. Okay, let's dive deeper into the typology. You mentioned how Joseph explicitly foreshadows Jesus Christ. You said he's considered one of the most complete types of Christ.
Yes, the parallels are really striking and numerous. It starts with that core journey from humiliation to exaltation.
Okay, explain that.
Joseph was despised, rejected by his own brothers, sold, falsely accused, thrown into the pit or the tomb of the prison, seemingly forgotten by everyone.
Right.
Christ, similarly, was despised and rejected, humbled himself to the point of suffering and death on the cross, was buried in a tomb, and then was highly exalted by God to the right hand of the Father, receiving the name that is above every name. That arc is mirrored.
Humiliation, then exaltation. What's another parallel?
His role as savior and provider. This is a big one. Joseph, through his God-given wisdom, provides physical grain bread to save a starving world during this catastrophic famine. He becomes the full source of sustenance, the only way to survive.
Go to jail.
Exactly. Christ, of course, identifies himself as the ultimate bread of life, providing eternal spiritual sustenance to a spiritually starving world. Joseph offers physical salvation from famine. Christ offers eternal salvation from sin and death.
That's powerful. What else?
Authority and governance. Joseph is made second in command to Pharaoh. He wields absolute executive power, symbolized by that signet ring. All of Egypt and eventually the surrounding nations are under his authority for sustenance.
Okay.
Christ, after his resurrection and ascension, is exalted to the right hand of the Father, and the Bible says all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to him. The command, go to Joseph, echoes the later truth that salvation and life are found only through Christ.
Wow. Are there others?
One more significant one is the detail of the Gentile bride. Joseph, a Hebrew, marries Asenath, an Egyptian woman, a Gentile from the perspective of Israel's covenant line.
How is that typological?
Many see this as foreshadowing the inclusion of the Gentiles, the non-Israelite nations, into God's redemptive plan through Christ. Jesus came first to the Jews, but his salvation extends to all people. The church, his bride, is composed of people from every tribe and nation. Joseph's marriage to an Egyptian noblewoman symbolizes that broadening of God's blessing and authority beyond just the family of Jacob.
So humiliation to exaltation, savior, provider, authority, and the Gentile bride, those are strong connections.
They really paint a compelling picture of Joseph as a deliberate foreshadowing.
Now, while Genesis 41 reads like this amazing administrative success story on the surface, you mentioned earlier there's this unseen cosmic conflict happening behind the scenes.
Yes, I think we have to recognize that. The entire narrative is charged with this underlying spiritual battle. It's about God's sovereignty working to preserve the future messianic lineage against forces that would seek to destroy it.
How so? What was at stake?
Think about it. The famine was regional, severe. If Jacob's family, those 70 or so souls who were carrying the covenant promise made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if they had been allowed to simply perish from starvation in Canaan.
The whole plan is derailed. The lineage leading to the Messiah is cut off.
Exactly. The spiritual battle was fundamentally about the survival of the covenant seed. So what looks like a series of fortunate coincidences.
The cupbearer suddenly remembering, Pharaoh having this specific uninterpretable dream, the famine hitting just when Joseph is ready.
It's actually divine providence meticulously guiding history. God used the pagan ruler, the advanced infrastructure of Egypt, and even the years of adversity suffered by this forgotten Hebrew slave, all as tools to preserve his covenant people and ensure his ultimate plan unfolds.
That's a profound perspective. The spiritual lesson there seems to be that God actively works against opposition, and he repurposes affliction for his greater purposes.
Right. Those prison moments, those 13 years Joseph spent from being sold into slavery until standing before Pharaoh at age 30. They weren't wasted time. They weren't punishment. They were his specialized training ground, preparing him for the specific task of saving the world from this famine.
And part of that preparation must have been internal psychological healing, right? We see hints of that in the names he gives his sons.
Yes, that's beautifully captured there. These sons are born during the 7 years of plenty, before the famine hits. And their names aren't just labels. They are declarations of his inner state, acts of psychological closure and spiritual testimony.
The first son is named Manasseh, which means forget.
And listen to Joseph's explanation. God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house.
Wow, that's profound. Is he just suppressing the trauma?
I don't think it's suppression. It seems more like a profound, God-enabled choice to move past the trauma. Forgiveness, release, letting go of the bitterness from the betrayal by his brothers, the years of slavery, the false accusation, the imprisonment. It suggests that healing and forgiveness are almost prerequisites for effective leadership, especially leadership that requires reconciliation later on.
He had to let go of the past to manage the future.
Seems like it. And then the second son is named Ephraim, meaning fruitful, or perhaps double prosperity.
And his reason.
Joseph says, God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction.
In the land of his affliction, not after leaving it, but in it.
Isn't that stunning? The very place of his suffering, Egypt, the land that held him captive and enslaved, became the source of his greatest blessing, his family, his position, his ability to provide. It's such a powerful model for us, isn't it? Finding fruitfulness, finding blessing, not just after the struggle, but sometimes right in the midst of the land of our affliction.
That really hits home. Now, let's connect this ancient story more directly to our modern world. You mentioned Joseph's story provides a kind of social and economic blueprint. How so?
Well, his wise administration, his planning, didn't just save Egypt internally. It saved surrounding nations from a devastating regional famine. It demonstrates the critical importance of effective governance, good crisis management, and careful resource stewardship for the well-being of whole societies.
We can certainly see parallels today, can't we? The cycles of plenty and famine echo modern economic uncertainties, booms and busts.
Absolutely. Think about global recessions or environmental crises like droughts or floods impacting food supplies, resource depletion cycles. They all highlight the ongoing need for wise preparation.
So Joseph models the importance of building reserves.
Yes, and not just financial reserves. His story implies building spiritual and emotional reserves during times of abundance during the good years, so we're ready for the inevitable lean years. His integrity, maintained even while operating within this powerful pagan secular system, also shows us a model for how to navigate complexity with faithfulness today.
The idea of a widespread, interconnected famine also feels very relevant to our globalized, often supply chain fragile world. One major disruption in one place can ripple across continents now.
Exactly. Joseph's foresight in setting up that national grain reserve was, in a way, the ancient equivalent of establishing a strategic global reserve. It was about resilience on a massive scale.
Okay, so Joseph gets the plan approved, gets the authority. Now comes the execution phase, part 6. Administration and fulfillment.
Right, and Joseph was clearly a man of action, a man of execution. For the next 7 years, the text says the earth brought forth by handfuls, just unprecedented abundance, bumper crops like never before.
And Joseph didn't just sit back. He implemented the plan he'd laid out.
Diligently. He executed that administrative mandate. He gathered grain, stored it up in the cities, and the quantities were so immense. The text uses this amazing phrase. It was like the sand of the ocean, without number.
They stopped counting.
They stopped counting. He gathered so much grain that keeping records became impossible or pointless. Imagine the logistics involved. Storage, transport, preservation, guarding it. A massive undertaking over 7 full years.
But he did it. He fulfilled the preparation phase perfectly.
He did. And the contrast, when it comes, is stark. The 7 years of plenty ended, right on schedule, just as the dream predicted. And the famine began.
And it wasn't just a minor shortage, was it?
No, the text emphasizes it was severe, and it affected all the surrounding countries. But Egypt, and only Egypt, had bread, because of Joseph's foresight in his faithfulness in executing the plan.
Then comes that moment of ultimate fulfillment, ultimate recognition. The people of Egypt start to run out of food. They begin to starve.
And they cry out to Pharaoh for help. And Pharaoh's response is the final, definitive confirmation of Joseph's unique role and God-given authority.
What does Pharaoh tell them?
He tells the entire nation, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you.
Wow. Just go to Joseph. That has to be the ultimate vindication, the ultimate payoff for that long, painful journey that started in a pit. He is now the sole source of provision, the gatekeeper of access to life itself in that part of the world.
Absolutely. And he didn't just provide for the Egyptians. The text says he opened the storehouses and sold grain to them, but also
The things started coming from other countries.
from all the surrounding lands, because the famine was severe over all the known earth. So the despised Hebrew prisoner, the one sold for 20 pieces of silver by his own brothers,
Is now the universal savior and provider for that region, controlling the fate of multiple nations.
and, most importantly for the biblical narrative, preserving the lives of his own family, the covenant lineage, even though they don't know it's him yet. That sets the stage for the next part of the story.
What an incredible arc. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Genesis 41, let's try to summarize the main takeaways. We've journeyed through this chapter, witnessing this profound reversal of Joseph's fate,
Seeing the perfect alignment of God's providence, even through delays and human failures.
and really understanding the power of character that's forged in the furnace of hardship. Joseph's story is such a powerful testament that suffering, from God's perspective, is never wasted. It's always preparatory.
Right. And I think the key takeaway for you, the learner listening, is this. Joseph's unique gifts, his ability to administrate, his discernment, his wisdom, these were honed in obscurity in Potiphar's house, in prison. Why? So they could be deployed for the collective good during a time of massive crisis.
His integrity while he was unseen, while he was imprisoned, that became his license, his qualification for influence when he finally became visible.
Exactly. His life just affirms that God can absolutely turn any prison, literal or metaphorical, into a platform for purpose.
Okay, so here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. The command given to the starving world in that time of physical catastrophe was clear. Go to Joseph, the provider of physical bread. Now, if Joseph, as we've discussed, is a type, a foreshadowing of Christ, and he saved the known world from physical famine through preparation and divine wisdom, what challenge does this chapter pose to you about your own spiritual readiness?
That's a searching question.
What is the unseen spiritual crisis, or maybe the emotional famine, happening in your immediate sphere right now? In your family, perhaps, your workplace, your community? Is it possible that your unique wisdom, the insights forged in your own past struggles and prison moments, is being prepared, being groomed by God to address that specific need?
Are you ready?
Yeah. Think about how your current period of obscurity or your past difficulties might actually be actively preparing you to be someone who can offer the true bread of life, spiritual sustenance, hope, wisdom, during what might be a time of deep spiritual famine for those around you. What is God preparing you for?